Hey, welcome to the Tom and Josh Show. I'm Josh. This is Tom. This week we are going to be talking surprises from Week 7, which was the bye week from hell. I'm sure a lot of folks had a lot of guys that were missing and just totally ruining their fantasy week, but we'll get to that. We're going to go through some recaps of our previous takes on the show, as well as some of the start-sit calls that you've seen kind of floating around, as well as who we think is going to work out this week. And, you know, those are going to include some guys that maybe we've talked about before, but more to come on that as we get there. And we're going to talk about our top waiver targets for Week 8. Spoiler alert, there's not many. And lastly, we're going to talk through some game picks. So we're going to go through the spreads as they were yesterday. I'm sure they've probably changed since then, but who we think will cover the spreads this week. So without further ado, let's get on to some surprises from Week 7.
Let's do it.
All right. So first off, biggest surprise for me was CJ Uzomah. And
Yes.
This was a guy, I picked this guy up 15 minutes before 12 o'clock. All right. And then I dropped him because I listened to the experts, right? Saying,
We're
O.J.
the
Howard,
experts.
we are the experts, right? In my gut, I was like, this guy, right, he gets touchdowns. He just does. He is just there, and he gets the touchdowns, and I felt confident in that. I looked at Fantasy Pros. It said, O.J. Howard's your better bet. And I said, okay, I'll go with it. And I lost the week because of it. So CJ Uzomah, 2 touchdowns, right? Only the 3 catches on the day, but a huge day if you are banking on some replacement for a lot of the guys that were on bye week. In my case, it was an injury to Darren Waller. Tom, your thoughts?
Yeah, I replaced Dalton Schultz with CJ Uzomah, and that worked out well for me. And I'm sure like a lot of us were in a bunch of leagues, but in that league, it won me my matchup. And so, like we said, he's touchdown dependent. He's only got about 3 targets a game. He had 3 targets on Sunday for 3 catches and 2 touchdowns. So like I don't know if that's production that you can count on to that degree, but a good streaming option. And this is a guy that's maybe not now after this big week, but you get those guys that kind of get picked up, used for a week, and then dropped again. So I'm curious to see if that's going to be CJ Uzomah's role, and for a week-to-week touchdown-dependent guy that might win you your matchup that week.
Yeah,
So.
and that Bengals offense is just humming, right? They've got so many guys. Jamar Chase had that huge touchdown, right, where he spun off of like 3 guys. So much for all this talk about Jamar Chase in the preseason, right? We're about halfway, almost, well, I guess not quite now with the longer season, but, right? He's just been phenomenal. So, anyway.
Historically good.
Historically good.
Yeah.
And just one of those guys makes you regret passing him up, especially in dynasty leagues, right? I think he dropped a little bit just from all of that talk of folks, right, saying he was dropping everything. He's going to be a bum. And he's not.
Yeah.
So here we are. Who you got next for our surprises?
Khalil Herbert. So I'm in Chicago, so we're going to get to another Bear a little bit later. But Khalil Herbert, and what was just a disaster of a game for the Bears, he looked pretty good. Yeah. He's averaging 18 carries a game. He mixes into the passing game with them. I think he had 5 receptions this weekend, and I kind of think he's a real threat to Montgomery when he comes back. Like, Khalil Herbert's been not a guy that you never know with the Bears coaching staff, but any logical person or coach would say that this dude has earned some playing time, no matter who's coming into that running game. He looked really good and was kind of the lone bright spot on what was just a horrible day for the Bears.
Yeah, he looks so explosive, and I'm gonna look right. Packers fan, and I am going to be really disappointed if all of a sudden, I had mentioned this a couple weeks ago, if Tariq Cohen comes back and starts siphoning away too much of the work from Herbert, I'm going to be really disappointed. And I'll be honest, I own Herbert in one of our leagues, and he's been phenomenal, right? And so just like you said, it's totally working out and got to be a threat. You would think it's got to be a threat. Now Montgomery is young. He's not an older guy.
Right.
I forget, was he a third-round pick? I thought he was up there in terms of draft capital back in the day. It's only a couple of years ago, right? But who knows, right? It's just one of those things. Matt Nagy.
Well, he's got COVID now, so maybe with him stepping away from the team a little bit.
There you go. It takes.
Yeah, and I should mention that I'm a Packers fan as well, so not to be confused.
Sure. So. This happened to I don't know if he picked up the duties again this week, but I remember Nagy taking a step back a week or two ago, and everybody got excited. So we'll see what happens this week in terms of
maybe better days to come for them.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah,
for the Bears fans, right?
Who knows? Sure. Yeah,
Rodgers still owns them, right? So not a problem there. So the next guy that I want to talk about. So I mentioned Darren Waller just a minute ago, and as I was doom scrolling through possible tight ends who could fill in for this potentially, at the time it was a potential injury. Foster Moreau, right? His replacement on the Raiders. And I sat there and I said, Darren Waller is unique. In this offense, he's kind of this one-of-a-kind guy who's, if somebody were to step in and replace him, he's not going to get the same volume. Here comes Foster Moreau, right? 6 catches, 60 yards later, and a touchdown. So it's just one of those things, right? Where huge surprise there. Now, he's been relatively involved. I think he played 100% of the snaps this week. Just that offense, that Las Vegas offense, if you've got Waller and you're kind of concerned about his injuries, Foster Moreau might as well, right? Might as well slide him in there now. Week 8, they've got the bye. So probably not somebody that you would be able to plug in this week, but if you have a really deep bench, perhaps I would consider picking him up. Now, there's no signs that Waller's going to miss too much time, but if they're putting that much volume into tight end, I would go Moreau.
Yeah, I think that's a guy that's, especially now that you mentioned with the bye week, is probably going to be available in a lot of leagues. People that are picking up free agents aren't usually grabbing guys on bye for ahead of time. And, they're going through a coaching change of their own as well. So we're kind of still waiting to see how this offense is going to shake out, if it's going to be much different at all. But the Raiders are a team that loves their tight ends. So if Waller's not playing,
yeah, definitely. And we had put that video out there a couple weeks ago, right? As soon as Gruden got fired, we were out there, and everything's kind of come true since that video. Is we were saying, hey, Bisaccia is going to come in. It's going to be Greg Olsen, who's going to be taking over is it Greg Olsen? I'll cut this part out, right? But I'm pretty sure, right? But the offensive coordinator has been there for 4 years. He's been the guy. He's going to be calling the plays. And so this was all kind of predicted that it was going to be more of the same. In this case, it lit a spark under a lot of the guys on that team. So good things seems like coming out of that Vegas offense. So, what did you think about Kansas City this last weekend?
You spend enough time online and you see stuff it's the league figured out Patrick Mahomes, and I don't buy that. I don't buy that stuff. But there's clearly an issue. The defense is bad, but the defense has never been awesome, and that hasn't slowed down that offense. So it's surprising to see them struggle this badly.
I think I echo pretty much everything you said. Now, the Mahomes stuff, right, where just I don't know what it is. He's got all these turnovers, and he's mentioned that, he's got to clean it up and everything. And I've seen a lot of stuff that just he needs that accountability, right, where it needs to be this, all these other quarterbacks get dumped on for all these turnovers and everything, and Mahomes is leading them. He's got so many turnovers in the last few weeks that I'm really hoping they figure something out. I think it's a good quality bunch of guys, obviously, and you wish them well. And they're obviously this hugely talented group. I should mention that the stuff with Jackson Mahomes is trash. Like, just
He's
the worst.
He is the worst.
Now, if you've seen kind of the different angles on that video, and this is, people have probably beat this to death on
talking about the Sean Taylor one.
Yeah, exactly, the Sean Taylor.
Yeah.
But if you've seen the different angles, it is totally like the team just set them there on top of the logo. Probably shouldn't have danced on it, right? Okay, we'll move on. Right, nobody wants to hear about Jackson Mahomes anymore. But yeah, that Kansas City offense, right, because we're talking fantasy sports. I was just playing against Tyreek Hill this past week. Got really excited that he didn't score 20-plus points on me, so that was really great. Right. But again, they've got to figure something out. I think they're a good enough team to figure it out. They have a good enough coaching staff, so I'm not freaking out. They'll be there in the postseason for sure, right? I don't think there's any concern for that team, for them moving forward. Moving on to some recaps of our previous takes and some start-sit calls. So, Tom, why don't you lead us off? You mentioned you teased us earlier with some Bears players. Who do you got?
Yeah, so it's a guy that I talked about a couple weeks ago, and there was another guy I was going to talk about quickly, Miles Sanders, but he got hurt. We don't know severity, so I kind of left that one alone. But the guy I really wanted to talk about is Allen Robinson. He has only passed 60 yards once this year. He's only has one touchdown. We've talked about in the past how pass catchers with teams with rushing quarterbacks and rookie quarterbacks struggle, and Justin Fields is both of those, and Robinson is struggling. It's not good, and especially this week against Tampa, who's been a fairly friendly team to pass catchers. I think they're in the bottom 10 in receiving yards allowed. So my kind of take on him is I think I'm going to drop him. Not only sit him, I don't even know if he's worth having him on, especially if you're in an 8 or a 10 team league. What do you think? Like, am I crazy? Is he too talented for that? Or
the production's not there, right? In an 8 team league, like, there should be no question. He is at the bottom of your bench or cut, right? What a fall from grace, right? One of these guys that has been talked about consistently as, most people are taking this guy historically third round. He's kind of coming up, especially in redraft leagues and whatever. But man, that's what can you say? That offense has been really bad, and I don't want this show to just be us Packers fans dumping on the Bears, right? But if you don't mind, I'm going to segue to a sit that I have, and so you take Robinson and. You're saying you're calling for him to be dropped, and so I'm going to take the guy who's been siphoning away some of that production in Darnell Mooney. And, he's been good recently, but after watching what just happened against Tampa Bay, and you've got this kind of bottom-tier pass defense now, if you actually watch the game, Fields had no time to throw it. He was under duress the whole time. This whole team got squashed. And I just think that's an issue, right? For production of a guy like Darnell Mooney, where I think you definitely have better options, right? I've got him sitting on my bench in a couple of 12-man leagues, right? So it's not like he's way up there. It's one of those guys that you look at and you say, I'm not going to start him this week. And this week is no different for me. I'm keeping him on my bench. You're torching Allen Robinson. You're booting him from your teams. So, it's, don't even get me started on Cole Kmet, right? This guy. So all these players, and Khalil Herbert, you take him and drop everybody else. I think is our takeaway from this show on Bears offensive players.
Right.
Okay.
And it's different if you're in like a dynasty league,
sure,
right? Like with Robinson, Mooney, like you're not going to drop them. But in a standard redraft league, they're holding you back, and if you've played them, you've suffered.
Yeah.
So
I just I mentioned the Uzomah thing. Right, how I swapped that out last second. I also, in the same league, I subbed in Mooney over Michael Carter, and I'm going to segue to Michael Carter here in a second, right? I swapped him out for Michael Carter literally at 11:58. and again, so either one of these changes would have won me. I lost by 2 points. Either one of these would have saved my week. I'm going to touch on Michael Carter briefly, right? The Jets are...
Yeah, let's talk about Michael Carter.
The Jets are a dumpster fire, right? So their second overall pick in Zach Wilson goes down with an MCL sprain. Who knows how long that keeps him out? That timetable's not set yet, but they picked up they traded for, excuse me.
Just acquired Joe
Flacco. Not that that's much of a consolation for anything, but my mindset going into this game against New England was he's not going to get too much volume, and then all of a sudden, if you're in a PPR league, he's got something like 9 targets. So this guy is a legitimate consideration, right, for a start in a flex spot in PPR leagues, especially. Standard leagues, stay away, right, because there's not going to be enough volume. He might find the end zone once, but the yardage isn't going to be there. What do you think?
Yeah, Michael Carter's a guy I've kind of liked all year. Whether the data has so much backed that up or not has been spotty. But I like Michael Carter. I think it's a depending on your situation and bye weeks, like a worthy guy to start. I assume they're going to be starting Flacco, right? Like in the Zach Wilson, right? Like
they have to, right?
So we haven't seen him in a while.
Well,
but anytime it's a new QB, I feel like those pass catching running backs can be a safety blanket for them. You're right, in PPR leagues, decent play.
Yeah, and whether or not they start Flacco, I don't know. Right, but even if they stick with the other guy, was it
Michael White? I think.
Yes,
his name?
Mike White. I was thinking. I kept thinking Mike Davis. I'm like, that's somebody else. But Michael White. Right, like that's going to be either way. Right, he's going to be heavily involved in that passing game for those short dump offs. So a guy that I'm looking to start. Another guy that I am going to double down on. So I posted a video on Zach Ertz.
Did you read Zack Moss?
No.
Zach Ertz?
I'll get to Zack Moss. I'm all about the Zacks today. I'm bouncing back. All Zacks today. I am all on the Zack train. Zach Ertz, right? I posted a video, the trade to Arizona. I said, I think it's going to revitalize his career. Now, that's a bold statement. Okay. Trading him to a team that's not really targeting tight ends. All this guy did was come in. He played less than 50% of the snaps, got 5 targets.
Yeah.
3 of those he caught, one of them for a touchdown. Right now, the touchdown was some wide open, longest play of his career that you can't really bank on year in and year out. But again, he remains at the number 12 tight end in PPR leagues on the season. So it's one of those that, right, this is a better option than O.J. Howard or any of these guys, right, that that you're seeing pop up in all of these waiver wires, and so definitely a guy that you should be excited about. The Arizona offense is really good. Anybody that is catching balls from Kyler Murray right now is looking phenomenal. So I think you have some comments on a pass catcher from Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I do. And real quick, just on Ertz, I wonder if this is going to be. I feel like you see this more in basketball, but like a guy gets traded out of a situation that he clearly does not care about, and then he's like kind of revitalized and like seems to care again. And so I'm as an owner of Ertz in some of my leagues, I'm hoping that this isn't just a fluke, and that some of these targets are here to stay. And you're right. So it's kind of segueing a guy who I have in some leagues that has surprised me when I looked at the stats today is Christian Kirk. So he's getting over 5 targets a game. And outside of like a really dud game against the Rams in week 4, he's been great this year and much better than I thought. He's ranked number 22 amongst receivers, ahead of guys like Diggs and Keenan Allen. And is this pace sustainable? Like to this degree, I don't think I'd pick him above those two guys, but he's hot, and so I'm starting him, and I'm gonna kind of ride this wave until it falters, and hopefully Ertz doesn't start to siphon off some of those targets, but the dude's been really good.
He's super exciting. I drafted him a year too early. I had him last year, and this year he wasn't awful last year. There was times, but no, Kirk is definitely somebody who has been ready to pop, I think, for a couple of years. And, like you said, hopefully Ertz doesn't take some of that shorter work that I think he tends to get. You've got kind of Hopkins and Green on the outside, right? So I agree, right? I would totally, if I owned him, and I regret that I don't, I would start him up. And I think you definitely hit it on the head with that one.
Yeah, and I think as the season goes on, maybe Rondale Moore starts to eat away at some of those carries and that snap count. But for now, Christian Kirk's been hard to ignore.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, definitely. So you may have seen in one of our thumbnails, a couple weeks ago, I put a bit of a teaser in there. Geno Smith greater than Justin Herbert? ? Right.
Gotta get those clicks.
Gotta rack up those clicks, right? And it wasn't supposed to be. There was some legitimate, hey, maybe, because Geno Smith came in and he showed out when he subbed in for Russ Wilson that game where Russ goes down, Geno comes in, almost brings him back from the brink. The interception that Geno throws is, not his fault. And then Geno starts games, and he's getting 10, 11 points a game. And meanwhile, Justin Herbert has had a 40-point game and a bye, right? So, okay, right? That take may have been a little exaggerated. Okay, I think Geno Smith is safely left on the waiver wire. I don't know if you have much else to say, but we could probably move right along from Geno Smith.
Yeah, it's a good transition into the pass catchers for the Seahawks. Right. Tyler Lockett feels kind of unplayable if Russell Wilson's not there, and DK Metcalf his day was salvaged by that huge touchdown.
Also sunk me in the same game that I effed up all the other start sets. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look up the targets throughout that game, but I as I was watching it, I think he hadn't gotten targeted again after that long touchdown until like it was a whole quarter gone by before they even
late in the second half that he finally picked it up and then beat me. Yeah.
Right. So it's I've got Tyler Lockett in at least one league, And I think you just got to avoid him until Russell Wilson comes back. It's been bad.
Yeah, and it's tough to say about a guy like Tyler Lockett, right, where he's been kind of the epitome of a boom-bust guy, right, the last couple of seasons.
Yeah.
And this, I haven't owned him because I'm not a huge fan of the boom-bust guys, but, if you might be able to speak more to this, but it's totally not, there's no boom upside, right, with Geno at quarterback.
Right, not anymore.
Right? He's a guy that was always a threat to go off for multiple touchdowns, or, he'd have a big 50, 60, 70-yard play, and it's just not happening right now.
Yeah, he had a great week 1 and great week 2, and since then it's been very forgettable.
Okay.
So he's someone that I'll be sitting for the time being.
Well, somebody that I'll be starting, Zack Moss. All right. So a couple weeks ago, I said I had Jalen Waddle and Zack Moss as my starts. Jalen Waddle had 2 touchdowns. Nailed it. Huge win. That was awesome. Zack Moss did nothing. And I think he had, I think he finished with 6 or 7 points or something like that. I think this is the week he gets back. I think they're going against Miami again, right? Buffalo versus Miami. Earlier in the season, he scored. So he is, again, somebody that I'm looking forward to starting. And I'm going to bank on that touchdown again this week. And I think that some of that increased usage that we started to see before all of a sudden, I said start him, and then, that's how the universe works. I think that's going to revert itself a little bit this week. So, I'm looking for him to get back in there, get some more action. Singletary, I think, was really he had a really good game. I want to walk that one back a little bit, right? It wasn't fantasy-wise the most spectacular game, but if you were watching that Bills game where, I had said start Zack Moss, and then all of a sudden he did nothing, Singletary was for sure the better of the 2 backs. This week, I think that flips itself around.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. It's coming off a bye against a bad Miami team. This feels like a get-right game.
Sure.
For Zack Moss.
Sure.
So
yeah, and those bounce back games are real. It's a weird thing. I don't know why it is. It's just a mentality thing, I guess. But we'll get there. So we're gonna move on. Next segment: top waiver targets for Week 8. And I teased at the top of it. Not
how's it
much there. All right. We had 3 guys. Well, excuse me. 2 guys and a defense that we were looking at. And one of them is a COVID close contact.
Allen Lazard. So he looked great. And then with Devontae Adams out, with being out with COVID against Arizona on Thursday, Lazard was looking to be that kind of next man up and kind of take the reins here a little bit as a wide receiver 1. And that's not happening anymore.
It is not. It is not at all. And, chemistry with Rodgers is one of those things that, right, so the receivers that have that chemistry with Rodgers is something that boosts their fantasy production and, just general, the Packers overall immensely.
Yeah.
And Adams, you can watch, anytime you watch it, the plays that he makes are all chemistry with Rodgers. Lazard's starting to flash that. So then the next man up becomes Randall Cobb, in my mind, right? So you have, I think, MVS he's out, right?
On IR.
He's still out. You've got Cobb, you've got Amari Rodgers, and you have...
Do they still have Equiminius St. Brown? Is he still there?
Yes.
So
EQ. So, right, if you are a diehard Packers fan, you absolutely need to start a receiver from the Packers because Rodgers is that good and he will elevate the play of anybody that's out there. Cobb is the guy. I don't think that there's anybody else that I would touch except for Cobb.
Right. Definitely from a pass catching perspective. So we'll see if they kind of lean on Tunyon and maybe work in, I don't know, AJ Dillon a little more.
Okay.
Like I'll be very curious to see how the Packers look.
Sure.
As a fan and as a
right.
as I kind of observe how this shakes out for fantasy football.
Yeah, and hey, maybe Tunyon takes tight end week, national tight end week, right into a second week here. He had a great game last week, but we'll see.
Showed out for the tight end.
He sure did.
Yeah.
He sure did. Who do you got for our defense, Tom?
Our defense is the Bengals, the hottest team in football.
Hottest team.
So, we're talking matchup here, right? They get the Jets. They get Flacco at quarterback or Mike White, which honestly, and at this point, is that even a downgrade over Zach Wilson? I don't know. It's just been all ugly. But this is a defense that I like as a streamable option to really kind of clamp down on a very struggling Jets offense. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I think that D-line just going to own the offensive line of the Jets. And, we can dump on Zach Wilson all we want. He just doesn't have time to throw. That offensive line, they've got a couple bright spots, but I think they're hurt right now. And the rest of it just isn't holding up. And I think that the strength of this Bengals defense is that defensive line. And so it's not going to look pretty for the Jets this week. And so I would absolutely pick up the Bengals, start them up, stream them, do what you got to do, and win. Right? Because I wouldn't be shocked if all of a sudden we come back here next week and the Bengals had 20 points.
Yeah, I would be too.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? Now, you mentioned Miles Sanders' injury, and I saw something that was like, maybe it's a week that he misses or so. Any value in Boston Scott?
Yeah, so Sanders left the game. You're right. I don't even know if they've ruled him out for Sunday yet officially.
Oh, okay.
I would guess that he probably doesn't play. But yeah, you've got Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell are going to be kind of the next guys up. And the Eagles feel like such a mess offensively that if you need a running back, yeah, but I don't know. Are you a Boston Scott believer? What do you think?
I don't know that I would be willing to pick him up and start him. And especially if it's only going to be a week or so, I'd probably just leave him on waivers. Chances are whoever you have on your team is more valuable in the long run. He's done zero to this point, right? And finally last week he got a couple touches. So I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Yeah. I know, going into the season,
the Eagles, man.
That running back, they've always been that running back by committee team. And I think, Sanders was somebody that I had my eye on early. I didn't get him in any of my leagues, right? Because somebody else always had their eye on him before I did, but...
Yeah, it was probably me.
It was. In our dynasty league, it certainly was. But, right... how frustrating, right? And Scott was
I
supposed to be,
texted a buddy of mine that my affliction is believing that Miles Sanders is really good at fantasy football, and I don't know. I think he's a decent NFL player, but it hasn't translated to fantasy.
Sure.
So he's still young, and it's a dynasty league, right? So maybe there's hope to come.
Maybe there's hope to come. All right, we're going to transition into a new segment for the Tom and Josh show. We're going to make some game picks, and we're going with the spread. Okay, so we're going to be making these picks based on who we believe will cover the spread. And so it's not necessarily a win-lose. We'll talk about some of the, some of our outs. whatever our outlier picks, after the fact. But let's do a quick rundown here of who we're picking this week. All right, so all of these spreads are as of last night, so that would have been the 25th. Obviously, we talked about the Lazard COVID thing, and there's going to be certain injuries that may have affected some of these spreads since announcing this, but I'm going to go ahead and run through some of these. All right, so I'm going to run through the list, and then we'll talk about some of our differing picks. All right. So we have Green Bay at Arizona. The spread is Arizona minus 3.5. Josh has Arizona. Tom has Green Bay.
I'm starting to maybe rethink that with the Lazard news, and not that Lazard shouldn't be the guy.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
There's one to begin with.
Sure. But. Yeah, just a very high-powered Arizona offense. And as diehard of a Green Bay fan as I am, I'm scared for that one. No
faith in our boys.
Shame. Next game.
Yeah, I've got Green Bay. Yeah. We'll see.
We'll see. Next game, we have Carolina at Atlanta. Atlanta at -3. I've got Atlanta. Tom's got Carolina. So go ahead. You got something?
Yeah, we're splitting the difference once again. I don't know. I don't love Atlanta in general. So I was a little surprised to see them favored. I know they're at home, but I kind of think Carolina can take this outright.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, Atlanta is a scary team to bet for.
Yeah.
Right? Carolina, they benched Darnold this week, and I guess McCaffrey's coming back, or should be coming back, right? It's just such a muddy situation. They haven't been one of those teams that at the beginning of the year I thought Carolina was going to be this really, really good team. Atlanta obviously has not been that really, really good team. I'm just going Atlanta, at least to cover.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Pitts has been looking great.
He's been on the up and up for sure. Started the season off a little slow, but then picked it up in London, of all places.
Yeah. Next game, we got Miami at Buffalo. We got Buffalo by 13.5. We both have Buffalo.
I can't believe that.
I don't know if there's much to say here.
It's effectively a 2-touchdown spread, and we're both unanimously saying, yeah, that's going to happen. That's wild, right?
Yeah.
So, Buffalo is just one of those teams right now whose offense is so dangerous that, 14 points feels like nothing here.
Yeah, agreed.
All right.
Up next, San Francisco at Chicago. We match again. We both got San Francisco, and they're in a 3.5 point favorite here. Chicago's just been bad. We've talked a lot about Chicago today, and as objective fantasy football fans, they just haven't been good. So I don't know how you can watch Sunday's Bears game and feel okay.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, San Francisco has a really good defensive line, and Chicago has a really bad offensive line. And I just think that, as soon as you get into Justin Fields trying to throw the ball again, I just, part of me thinks that we're in for another barnstorm there. So the next game we got is Pittsburgh at Cleveland. This one's tricky, but we got Cleveland at -3.5. We both got Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I was I was a little surprised that we both had Pittsburgh. I think coming off the bye, I'm hoping that they're just a little healthier. Big Ben has a little more time to be rested and come out here and cover this spread against Cleveland.
For sure. In Cleveland, right, all the question marks are around Baker Mayfield. And so it's one of those things that, 3.5, I just, who knows? Case Keenum is one of the best backups you could have.
Yeah, agreed.
Especially for the offense, but they're hurt in other places, right? They're leaning on Dearness Johnson right now. So I'm going Pittsburgh here, I just think that it's going to be too much. So the next game, we got Philadelphia at Detroit. Philadelphia minus 3.5. Neither of us have faith that Philadelphia is going to hold that up. We both have Detroit. Are we fools?
I don't know. Are we? Maybe we're just. Are you? We're Packers fans. Are you kind of hopeful that Detroit gets a win here?
Everybody's hopeful that Detroit finally wins a game, right? Like, Goff's not a bad guy. I'm hoping that Goff pulls out a win here for his sake.
This feels like one of the more likable and competitive defeated teams that I feel like we've ever come across.
Sure.
So
yeah,
if they're going to get a win, it feels like it's going to be this game against a struggling Philly team, or maybe the Bears down the line.
Yeah. So next game, Tennessee at Indianapolis. This one's pretty much a push, right? So it's Tennessee by a half a point.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think so. Right now, I have Indianapolis. You've got Tennessee. We'll see. Right.
I'm riding the Derrick Henry train. It's his world, and we're just living in it. So
he is wild. Threw a touchdown pass last week.
The man does it all.
He does it all, right? Man. Yeah, I was watching that game in San Francisco where Indianapolis, it was literally a bomb cyclone. Okay, where that was such a hard game to watch, and Indianapolis had a really hard time stopping Elijah Mitchell, especially in that first half, right? No matter who was chasing after him, it just looked like he was just kind of slowly weaving through guys. I'm a little scared for my pick, right? But eventually Indy pulled it out and beat San Fran. They pulled it together after all. So I think that they pull it out. Okay.
They're scrappy.
Yeah. Is it bad maybe that I'm saying, oh, well, they covered Elijah Mitchell, so therefore they'll be able to cover Derrick Henry? Yeah, probably. And I'm probably going to eat these words next week. But, that's a tough team.
Yeah. Up next, Cincinnati against the Jets. And it's Cincinnati by 10. We talked about streaming Cincinnati's defense. And I think a lot of the same sentiments echo here. We've both got Cincinnati. That feels like an easy one.
If we're willing to take Buffalo at 13.5, not right. Like, this feels like a game. 10 points that's a lock as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And 13.5, not even the biggest spread, because up next we've got the Rams at Houston, and the Rams are favored by 14. 2 touchdowns is a lot for a team to cover. I've got the Rams anyway. I think Houston's just that bad, and I'm rocking with the Rams. You've got.
I've got Houston.
What do you?
And
what
you know
thinking?
what? Tyrod Taylor. I think he's coming back. He's practicing this week. If he starts again, Houston's at home. It's his first game back. I don't think there's any way that he lets the game get that out of hand where it's a 14-point spread. So I don't think Houston wins. I think they cover the spread.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah. Tyrod Taylor definitely makes them a lot more of a serviceable NFL team than Dave Smith. So
credit where credit's due, right? He did a job. All right, so we got New England at the Chargers. We both have the Chargers at minus 5.5. New England just put up 50-plus points against the Jets, right? But right, so we're not necessarily saying New England's got this high-powered offense after that game, but I think the Chargers coming off of their bye are ready and willing to put up at least a touchdown over the Patriots.
Yeah, you never feel good going against a Belichick team necessarily, but you're right. Rested, bye-weeked. This feels like a game that the Chargers are going to come out very prepared for, and in my opinion, win this by at least a touchdown.
Yeah.
So next we have Jacksonville at Seattle. Seattle is favored by 3. we're both picking Seattle despite the Geno Smith woes that we have talked about.
And I've thought about this. Was one that I thought is this the week that Jacksonville pulls something off? I just don't know.
Yeah, this is like one of the ones I feel like I could flip back on the easiest. I'm sticking with Seattle, but if Jacksonville wins this game outright, like I don't think either of us could be surprised.
I don't think we'd be shocked. Yeah, no, we wouldn't be shocked. This could be one that we both get wrong, and we'd be like, well, told you so. Right? We told you we would be wrong. Yeah,
right.
So next we've got Washington at Denver. We both have Washington, even though Denver is -3. I'm not confident in Denver's offense. Their defense is also something that I'm not confident in. As good Denver's defense is really, really good earlier this year, and they've not been really since. Washington has also been the same, I guess. So, Tom, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I just believe that Washington's defense is better than that they've played.
Sure.
This team has not, expectations be what they may. I don't think they've lived up to what like an average Washington fan or even just like an NFL fan would say that you would have thought they have been. Antonio Gibson he's playing, but he's got that shin injury that's kind of lingering. Even still, I'm still going with Washington.
Yeah, and that Washington defense again. I've mentioned this in previous shows, right? I picked them up. I thought they were going to be better. They're bottom 30 of the league. I also picked Gibson in I think all of my leagues, and here we are. That's not really panning out because
I've got him in some.
So
yeah.
So next we've got Tampa Bay versus New Orleans. Nice rivalry game here, right? Tampa Bay -4-5. Obviously, Brady coming off of that 600th passing touchdown. That was a cool moment, by the way. Quick break, right? Like where Mike Evans gives the ball away to the fan. The fan works out some quick negotiation with whoever showed up to be like, hey, I need that ball back.
Equipment
Did
manager.
you see the haul that he got out of all that?
So it didn't look good until I heard that he also got 1 Bitcoin.
Oh, did he really?
They threw that in. Tom Brady added a Bitcoin to it. So that's north of 60 grand at the moment.
Right off the bat, right? Yeah, it's 60 grand, and then it's when you said it was a 60 grand, maybe it hit 50 when I said it, but jumps around. But yeah, how cool! And all of this stuff, and maybe Tom Brady. I was watching a different show, and it was saying, hey, what if Tom Brady takes this guy out to lunch, right? Or something like that. And that's not something that this guy could ever put a price on. And just such a cool thing. I don't, if you were that fan, any thoughts about trying to keep that ball?
It's easy to say, but and I don't know, I didn't going into this game know that Brady was at 599 touchdowns. So getting like a touchdown ball is not like a super unusual occurrence. So, but I've seen people say as soon as he got that, he should have just ran out of left his information and ran out of the stadium.
Yeah.
Make a deal later. That's easy to say, and then you see the valuations on what that could have gone for.
It was
$500,000.
Some auction house said $500,000.
Right. So I don't know. I like to think that I would have been I'm running and taking the money later, but that's tough.
There's no way that I would have been able to pull that off, right? Honestly, the first thing that went through my mind as I was, I didn't get the game here, but the first thing that went through my mind as I watched that replay, I was like, that guy's going to get mugged immediately. Right? How is that? Even in the front row, I was like, how is that guy going to hold on to that ball for the remainder of this game if he doesn't take off and run like you said? I think, in my mind, there was no brainer to give the ball back. Just because, if I don't, I'm getting held up. Right? So you might lose it.
Lose it, yeah.
So anyway, take us home with the last two.
Did we ever say our picks for that?
We both took Tampa Bay. We talked about Tampa Bay long enough. I thought
we both took Tampa Bay. Yeah. We both took Tampa Bay. So next game, second to last, Dallas at Minnesota. Dallas is favored by 2. We both got Dallas. I think this is kind of a no-brainer, and I'm a little surprised at this spread. I thought it would have been a little more favoring Dallas. So I'm definitely going with them this week. What do you think?
Yeah. Their defense has been surprising, right? You've got Diggs on that, in that corner, who's just like, seems like every game he's at least intercepting one pass, maybe returning it for a touchdown, maybe getting a second interception. I just don't see how Dallas doesn't win this game. Now, Minnesota obviously has some good offensive weapons and could make this into a game, but I don't think it's decided by less than a touchdown. So, especially less than a field goal, right?
Agreed.
-2, yeah.
That surprised me. Yeah.
Last one.
Final game, we got Giants at KC. It's KC by 9.5. We both picked the Giants. This would have been blasphemous to say.
It might still be
a mere week ago. But yeah, right. It might still be, and it might come out looking that way after this game. But I don't think we're crazy for taking the Giants here. Kansas City's just struggled that much. So Giants, let's go. Let's do it.
Giants are a weirdly stingy defense too. Kind of one of those offenses that you look at and you say, nah. Right? That's not really anybody that I want to do. Right? So it's not a team that we would have picked to win outright, but against a 9.5-point spread, you've got a relatively stingy defense. Cripes, you got Daniel Jones catching one-handed passes like he's Odell Beckham along the sideline. So I think the Giants cover the spread here, and Kansas City probably still pulls out the win, rights their ship a little bit in terms of getting the win. But against the spread, I'm taking the Giants.
Yeah, I like it. So we'll be tracking our wins and losses here. We should we'll have to come up with some kind of a wager for here on out for the rest of the year, and maybe settle something up at the end. We'll
discuss it. So. We'll discuss it. I'm thinking $100, but we'll get to it. As time goes on. So with that, that's all we've got for the Tom and Josh show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys later in this week. If there's some breaking news, if there's some extra waiver thoughts that we have, we'll be sure to share them with you. Otherwise, we'll be back next week with some more content for you. With that, I'm Josh.
I'm Tom.
And we'll see you later.
Thanks guys.